Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously mind-blowing journey, one that stretches across nearly 300,000 years of human existence. We're going to explore exactly how our ancient ancestors survived in a completely wild world, and how, against all odds, tiny bands of wandering hunters eventually turned into the brilliant architects of the entire planet. We'll trace the exact steps of how humanity was born, how we adapted, and how the simple act of settling down completely changed the face of the Earth forever.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the origins of Homo sapiens, the original affluent society, the farming revolution, the hidden costs of agriculture, and finally, the dawn of the first cities. Let's get right into it.
Act 1. Origins of Homo sapiens.
Okay, picture all of human history compressed into a single 24-hour clock. Farming? That literally only started in the last few minutes before midnight. Our actual story as anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, kicks off way back around 315,000 years ago. We know this from fossil evidence found in Morocco, which suggests we evolved gradually across the African continent. But, for the vast majority of that timeline, we were just wandering, foraging, and trying to survive.
Now, here is a totally mind-bending fact. For most of our existence, we were absolutely not alone. We actually shared the Earth with multiple different human species, all at the exact same time. You had Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans across Asia, Homo erectus hanging on in Southeast Asia, this tiny hobbit species called Homo floresiensis, and the mysterious Homo naledi down in South Africa. We shared the planet. And yeah, we definitely interbred. Actually, modern humans of non-African descent still carry around 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA today. Denisovan DNA is still out there too, so in a way, they're literally still living inside us.
Act 2. The original affluent society.
The anthropologist Marshall Sullins famously coined this phrase, the original affluent society. And this concept completely wrecks that tired old myth of the brutish, starving caveman. Research actually shows that early humans had an incredible amount of leisure time. Because their material needs were super simple and nature provided enough, they typically only worked, actually foraging and hunting, about 15 to 20 hours a week. The rest of their time, it was all about socializing, resting, playing, and just living.
Their daily life was actually incredibly rich. They lived in small, super flexible bands of maybe 25 to 50 people. And their diets? Definitely not just hunk of mammoth meat over a fire. They ate highly varied diets packed with wild plants, which required this deeply complex botanical and medicinal knowledge. Socially, they used something called a reverse dominance hierarchy. Basically, they had strict social norms designed to actively stop anyone from hoarding resources or getting too bossy. Plus, their tools were genius, eventually evolving from simple stone flakes to really sophisticated weapons like the atlatl, which is a spear thrower, and eventually the bow and arrow. But the real game changer for Homo sapiens was this profound cognitive explosion. The physical evidence we have is just stunning. I'm talking 36,000-year-old cave art in France with shaded, incredibly lifelike moving animals. We've got 43,000-year-old paintings of human-animal hybrids in Indonesia, 35,000-year-old bone flutes in Germany, and these unbelievably elaborate burials with thousands of hand-carved ivory beads in Russia. This massive leap in symbolic thought, music, language, and shared belief systems is almost certainly the exact reason we were able to cooperate in huge numbers and outcompete every other human species on the block.
Act 3. The farming revolution.
So, that brings us to a massive, really puzzling question. If hunter-gatherers had all this free time, a highly varied diet, and a super fair, egalitarian society, why on earth did we decide to settle down, break our backs tilling soil, and start farming? Honestly, it's one of the greatest mysteries in archaeological history. Well, a huge piece of the puzzle comes from a site called Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. It's roughly 11,600 years old, and it is packed with these massive, tons-heavy carved stone pillars. But here's the absolute kicker. It was built entirely by hunter-gatherers. This is before the invention of agriculture, before pottery, before any of that. For the longest time, experts assumed farming had to come first so we could feed the workers building big monuments. Göbekli Tepe completely flips that script. It suggests that trying to feed giant crowds of people gathering for religious ceremonies might have actually forced us to invent agriculture. Religion and communal gatherings might have sparked farming, not the other way around. How wild is that? And once this idea started, it spread like wildfire, but completely independently. Agriculture wasn't just a one-time fluke. It happened in parallel all over the globe.
People in totally different environments arrived at the exact same revolutionary idea, just using whatever wild plants and animals they had nearby. The Fertile Crescent domesticated wheat, sheep, and cattle. Over in Mesoamerica, they masterfully engineered wild grass into maize, alongside beans and squash. South America tapped into potatoes and llamas, while China figured out rice, millet, and pigs. Humanity was fundamentally, permanently changing its relationship with the natural world. Act 4, Hidden Costs of Agriculture. Now, when you actually compare these two lifestyles side by side, the brutal trade-offs of farming become pretty obvious. Looking at skeletal evidence, early farmers actually saw a major drop in their health. They were noticeably shorter on average than hunter-gatherers, their joints were completely wrecked from repetitive farm labor, and their grain-heavy diets were way less nutritious. And to make matters worse, living packed together in tight settlements with lots of newly domesticated animals meant these early farmers got absolutely hammered by zoonotic diseases. Illnesses jumping from animals to humans. Oh, and those beautiful egalitarian social norms we talked about, they started to completely fall apart. Which naturally leads us to ask another fascinating question. If farming initially made us sicker, shorter, and way less equal, why in the world did it take over the entire planet?
Well, it all comes down to a concept called demographic advantage. See, agriculture didn't succeed because it made life better or healthier or easier for the individual. It succeeded purely because of raw demographic power. A farmed field pumps out vastly more calories per acre than a wild forest ever could. And more calories means you can feed way more people in a smaller space. So, strictly mathematically speaking, farming populations just grew faster. They simply out-reproduced and eventually displaced, or absorbed, the neighboring hunter-gatherer bands.
And with that massive population boom came a total rewiring of how human beings interacted. Here's the exact pipeline of how extra food created social hierarchies. Step 1, your farm generates a reliable surplus of food. Step 2, because you have extra food, not everyone has to hunt or farm anymore, which leads to occupational specialization. Now you have full-time potters, full-time priests, and full-time leaders. Step 3, land and those big silos of stored grain become material wealth that you can pass down to your kids. And finally, step 4, that wealth starts concentrating at the top, totally shattering those ancient egalitarian bands and creating distinct, rigidly stratified social classes.
Act 5, Dawn of the First Cities. 5,000 to 8,000 people. That's the estimated population of Catalhoyuk, a massive settlement in modern-day Turkey over 8,000 years ago. To put that into perspective, it absolutely dwarfed anything else on Earth at the time, and people lived there continuously for well over 1,000 years.
But Catalhoyuk was definitely not a city like we think of today. It was this densely packed, honeycomb-style proto-city. Get this, there were literally no streets at all. Their mud brick houses shared walls, and the residents actually walked across the rooftops and climbed down ladders through the ceiling to get inside their homes. And it gets even wilder. They used to bury their ancestors right under the floorboards of their living rooms. It was their way of keeping the deceased physically present in their everyday household lives.
Meanwhile, over in the Jordan Valley, you have Jericho. Dating back to around 9300 BCE, so well before pottery was even really a thing, Jericho is built near this incredibly reliable freshwater spring. But of course, once you settle down and have valuable resources, you have to protect them. So Jericho boasts this massive stone wall and a staggering 8.5-meter tall stone tower. It's this perfect example of how settling down suddenly meant you had to organize these monumental communal building projects, whether that was for defense against rivals, protection from floods, or just building a really strong shared identity. And man, once people were settled in one place, technology just skyrocketed. Because they didn't have to carry everything they owned on their backs anymore, humans started innovating incredibly fast. We see the widespread adoption of pottery, which was an absolute game changer for safely storing all that surplus grain. They started spinning flax and sheep's wool to make textiles. They figured out the very beginnings of metallurgy, hammering out native copper, which was the crucial stepping stone to the Bronze Age. And on top of all that, they set up these massive trade networks, transporting stuff like precious volcanic obsidian glass and marine shells across hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. Humanity was basically knocking on the door of complex civilization. So all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. We've just seen that humanity thrived for roughly 300,000 years in these highly flexible, deeply egalitarian bands. Agriculture, private property, and strict social classes, those literally just showed up in the last few seconds of our evolutionary clock.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, you have to wonder, are our modern social hierarchies and rigid political structures really the inevitable default of human nature? Or are they just one of many historical experiments we tried out because of the logistics of settling down? If our deep history proves anything, it's that human beings are remarkably adaptable, and we are perfectly capable of thriving in completely different ways. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the defaults, and I'll catch you in the next one.